Good morning. How are we doing, everybody? I hope you've been reflecting and checking in. Ted, how are you doing?
Better,
Good.
better than last week. Probably still in a state of reflection, but
Yes.
doing well. Yeah.
Well, I think, Ted, I know we talked about going into values today, but let's, if you're down, like I want to do like a plot twist because I think
I'm
we
down.
we skirted around like a big thing last week, which not only the checking in was big, but then also like the state of the world, right? Like what is going on around us. Like that's a big thing that we didn't really get into and how that impacts people. So I mean, you've been in the trenches working on this. So what have you seen going on?
You're good, Jade. In the sense that you said we skirted around it, and I think
Yeah.
I know you're not calling me out. That's not what you're doing. But
No,
like,
no, no.
but you, but I like what you said. The idea of skirting around, because maybe I am skirting around. Maybe I did skirt around last week. Like I got on the call with you, full transparency, and I'm feeling the weight of the world. Not me feeling the weight of the world, but man, there's still not still. There's just so much going on so many levels, right?
Yes.
I think that when I reflect on it, you think about the idea that it all started with a pandemic and the political stuff and the civic unrest, and we still have it. I'm
Mhm.
still seeing all these. I mean, this is just current state. There's all these shootings happening and all the rest of this, and the inflation. Let's not dismiss the fact that we're on here doing a jumpstart for people that are making big life decisions to change careers or to start a solopreneur and all the rest of that, and how finance plays into that. And we have families across the country right now making decisions on whether to do this or that because their grocery bill went up $40. Like
Mhm.
it's real. And so it's
Real.
like,
Yeah.
I almost feel like I love that you said we're skirting around it, because I almost feel like we would be negligent not to mention that when we say
Mhm.
check in, right?
Mhm.
Like when we're saying we're asking you to check in, and we talked about checking in on your goals and the rest of that. And then there's this emotional aspect of checking in,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
are we really? Because you tell me, do emotions play into activity and the way you operate on a daily?
It's inseparable.
Right,
Inseparable. Yeah.
right.
It's
And so what I would propose on this, again, under your, let's not skirt around this conversation around emotion, right?
yeah, yeah,
And checking in and being real with ourselves on the state of the state. I mean, we are living in a heavy world.
yeah.
That's the bottom line. And it's interesting because last week you also talked about slowing down and really celebrating the wins. And frankly, Jade, I don't think we're doing a good job of that either.
Mm.
And so when I kind of smash those two things together, I do think about this concept of we have four emotions, primary emotions, they say psychologically speaking, we only have four. And man, do we not do a good job sometimes of managing them, or giving voice to them or experiencing them fully.
Yeah.
And
Experience. Yeah.
those
I was just
those
would
four,
say, tell everybody the four that you're referencing so we're on the same page.
yeah, there's only there four. There's happiness, and if you're listening to this right now or watching this, maybe you should write these down, because we're going to be
Mhm.
asking you to reflect on this just like we did last week. But there's happiness, there's sadness, there's fear, and then there's anger, right? And I'm not going to dissect these completely today, but when you think about these four emotions, the average person walking around, and I will state this now, even in the line of work that I'm in deep level conversations with people daily, I'm not in a great spot right now with these four emotions, meaning
Yeah.
experiencing them, giving voice to them, reflecting on them, etc. And so when you think about like top level, fear and sadness, right? Those in business or out there in corporate America are two emotions that often are not supposed to be expressed, right? They're not
Mhm.
supposed to be expressed, which I try to push it, but I'm not going to riff about that. But think about it. If you only have four emotions and you suppress two of them, they have to go somewhere.
Yeah.
They have to go somewhere. And
Be released. Yeah.
they're either going to go to anger, which tell me there's plenty of anger in the
Oh,
world, or they have to go up in the happy bucket. The interesting thing that when you suppress fear or anger and they go up in a happiness bucket, they could show up as sarcasm, like this idea of like, hey, how are you doing? I'm living the dream.
yeah.
like there's not many people living the dream today. Like there's people that are doing pretty well. I mean, for all intent purposes, me and my family are fine. But am I living the dream? No, I'm not living the dream. And then all the way back to what you had said last week, this idea that many of us are suppressing happiness. Because why?
Feel guilty. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not going to go celebrate my win when I know they're dealing with inflation or they're dealing with, their grandma has COVID. Like there's so much stuff going on that we have suppressed so many emotions. And I guess the reason to bring this up, if people think like we're sitting here having, you shouldn't be laying on your couch listening to what we're talking about today, but you surely should be paying attention because this leaks into how we operate every day.
Yes.
And this idea of being really in touch with our emotions and not suppressing all of them. I mean, sort of the moral behind the story is you are actually supposed to live healthy and not let it affect your physical being and all the rest of it. You're supposed to experience all four emotions.
Yeah.
So I know we talked before earlier in the year about building community and whatnot. Are you building a community within AWAI or otherwise that is giving you the allowance to express all of those emotions?
Yeah.
It's very important that you do that as you embark on this solopreneur journey.
Yeah.
It just is. And it's been a heavy ride, and it's still a heavy ride on so many levels. And I'm glad you're calling out the skirt, like calling out that perhaps we skirted a topic. And I don't know how you feel about what I'm saying, but I'd love to kind of throw it back at you. Like,
I'm such a firm believer in feeling emotion, even though it sucks. It really does suck. But it's all reminding me, Ted, of again months ago when you talked about your dryer and the blockages that you had in your dryer, right? Remember that?
Yeah.
And it's like that. It's like, for me, if I don't feel emotion, I know for sure it shows up physically in my body, and I'm sure I'm not the only person that feels that way. And it's really been a big, probably, it's funny that we're talking about this now, because you and I personally, I don't think we've ever talked about this, but in the last 2 years, I've done a lot of reading and learning and practicing of like leaning into those emotions and feeling them when you're having them, right? Fear is, for me, one that comes up a lot, and I always just want to suppress it. I don't want to experience it. But I'll tell you on the other side, that what has helped me for sure is journaling, right? Like I like emotionally journal, if that makes sense. Like whatever I'm feeling, I write it out and I talk about it, and then I like, you can even sometimes even kind of like laugh at yourself when you read it. Like you'll go like around back in a circle. And it's for me, that's very healing. And then, I mean, this might be something we're going to have to skirt around today, because this is a whole 4 segments. But for me, when it comes to emotion, I've learned that my health, like they correlate so closely, right? So like I try and keep my health in check, and when I'm moving my body, what I'm eating, my emotions are pretty well balanced, if that makes sense. Like, I'm feeling them, but they're not those extremes and those highs or the suppression of them. So
it's a big ball of wax, like you say. I mean, there's probably a lot that we could go into on this.
100%. There's so much to this. And again, I feel like this is also becoming a theme of every week. It's like that going inwards, right? Like going back to yourself, and like, because like we're saying, you won't know that you're doing these things unless you're going and like doing a bit of like a self-scan of like how.
Well, it all comes down to self. I mean, it all, I say to leaders all the time, leadership is a journey of self more than it is anything else. But I could easily correlate that to this journey of being an entrepreneur or whatever. This is a journey about self. And, the emotional piece that we're talking about, you're right. We could probably break it into 3-4 different segments, because there's a business aspect to this.
Yes.
That if you learn how to understand and manage potential clients' emotions, like if they're acting angry at you, maybe they're fearful that they're getting ready to spend a bunch of money and that you can't deliver the product. But if you can get there and see beyond the anger and not dismiss them because they're being a jerk today, and understand what's underneath that emotion, you're going to be a wise business person. Yeah. So there's so many different little tentacles to this, but I think for the purpose of today, again, we're kind of layering on what we started last week, this idea of checking in. There is a lot going on a macro level, as I kind of position it to many different people. We're all in a lot of different buckets together. And then each one of us has our own individual journey that we're going through, and it's just compounded itself. And so again, same message as last time, but a little different, which is slow down. And we said, put pen to paper last week. Just put these 4 emotions down on a piece of paper. Where are you on the spectrum of every emotion? Are you finding space in your day? Do you have partners in your life? Do you have business partners? Do you have a community at AWAI? Where are you expressing these different emotions so that you can move through them?
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. I love that. And then again, I want to bring up what you brought up last week. And because the world is so heavy and because there's so much going on, like we've said, if there's something that like you want to hear us talk about, or that you feel like a topic to help you move through that, or help you move through your emotions, let us know, and we'll work it in. So awesome, Ted. Thank you so much. We'll see everyone next week.
See you soon.